I'm going to get everybody's attention, and then you can take the pulpit. Good morning.
Good morning.
First, thank you for the call to be here with you today. Before we begin the service, with all the events that have been going on in the world, I feel compelled to say just a few words about the many violations of human rights and freedoms we're seeing around the world today. Maybe stand and witness to the violation of rights and conscience that Russia has imposed upon the Ukraine, and lift up those fighting for justice. Just last week, on the 24th, the Florida House of Representatives passed Don't Say Gay or Trans Bill. If signed into the law, the bill would not only prevent teachers from providing a safe, inclusive classroom, but also prevent teachers from even talking about LGBTQ+ issues. In Texas, the state legislature has actually set a record this year for the highest number of anti-LGBTQ bills filed in one country. And now Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton have decided that providing any medical support, including therapies, to children and teens that are transgendered or searching, constitutes child abuse. That means teachers, doctors, anybody whom teens turn to normally for a safe haven have to worry about potential prosecution for not reporting kids and their parents to Child Protective Services. But we do celebrate the fact this week in Texas, many students have actually begun to protest this bill and lift up their actions. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of all people and hold on to the ideal, the goal of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And now in our world, the struggle, the fight for these ideals is being fought on many fronts. I appeal to us not only to stand witness, but to speak out from pulpits, from our homes, from our public spaces, and let the world know we do not support bigotry and oppression in any form. Blessed be and amen. And to bring us into our worship space today, I've chosen some words from the minister Susan Menkel Seal. And this is a bit of an excerpt from an essay she wrote entitled Balance. Goes, my daily spiritual practice is balance. A major part of that practice is balancing the busy, taken for granted moments of the day with moments to pause and appreciate what it is before me in my life. I probably wouldn't even consider this a spiritual practice, except for I've been learning to redefine the meaning of what it is to be spiritual and to ponder for myself the importance of faith. The message many of us have been given in our religious heritage is that if one wishes to be spiritual, one must leave the worldly world. Yet the reality is, if we have family and work, integrating that spiritual practice into our daily lives is a real challenge. Try meditating with a baby in the next room. We can practice spirituality in our daily lives. in our daily activities by remembering to pause, to pay attention and feel appreciation for what it is before us. Paying attention means using all of our senses in being in the world and in the moment. So, stop a moment. Feel the chair you're sitting in. Notice the temperature around you. Listen for the sounds of the background symphony. Breathe. Appreciate the colors of your clothing, your skin, the sky, the ceiling. Focus on appreciating the peace out of which you have found the time to listen to these words today. The feeling of oneness with creation and trying to bring back into being. This practice only takes a few minutes. It's not bound by place, by time, by ritual. Out of our business, we are called back into balance, back into ourselves and the silence of being present. But it's not just back into ourselves that we're called to. It's also the awareness of the continued presence of the environment around us and within us. We are called to remember our relationships and our dependencies. We are called to once again feel the oneness which sustains us, sustains our beings, in balance with creation, and to do so with wonder and appreciation.
The flaming chalice is not just the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. It is also, in a practical way, a point of focus, a point of gathering, and a point of alignment for the work that we would do of the Spirit and in the mundane world. And so as I kindle our chalice and invite those of you at home to kindle a chalice or candle if you have one as well, I share these words of the Reverend Eric Cherry. As we kindle this flame, we call to mind the peacemakers, neighbors of differing faiths with differing histories, with different politics, with different emotions, who find room for each other in their hearts, in their dreams, and in their lives. Those who hold firmly to a vision of peace and justice anywhere in the world, but especially today in Ukraine. Spirit of life and love, be present with all who are suffering terribly from violence in Ukraine and elsewhere. Open our hearts to compassion and lead us toward a vision of peace. May it be so. I now invite you to join in saying our covenant words, first in English and then in Spanish. Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, thus do we covenant. La doctrina de esta iglesia es el amor. La búsqueda de la verdad es su sacramento y el servicio es su oración. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar el conocimiento en libertad, servir a la humanidad en comunión, este es nuestro pacto. And now I invite you to join as Kevin leads us in our opening hymn, which is number 128 in the gray hymnal. And I believe the words are going to be posted in chat if you're on Zoom. Please join us as you're comfortable doing so with our opening hymn, For All That Is Our Life.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all that is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs that others serve, for services we give, for work and its results, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For sorrow we must bear, for failures, pains, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Good morning. To those of you here in the sanctuary and those of you joining us at home via Zoom, I'd like to welcome you to Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Todd Covert, and it is my privilege to serve as worship associate for today's service. Emerson has been a home for progressive, inclusive, and inquisitive spirituality for well over 60 years now. We welcome unreservedly members and guests who come seeking a faith tradition that centers individual dignity and worth, regardless of identity or condition, and the work of social, economic, and environmental justice. If these values resonate with your spirit, we hope you have found, or find if you're new, true welcome here in this congregation. Those of us gathered here in person are committed to a conscious and responsible connection to our surrounding community and a meaningful recognition that the grounds on which our church stands were part of the traditional homelands of the Chumash and Tongva peoples and were appropriated from them. Our appreciation for the spiritually nourishing work we do as part of this welcoming and beloved community must always be tempered by the reality of that history and how we choose to acknowledge it. For those of you new to this community, whether here or on Zoom, I invite you to add your name to our guest book, either at the welcome table in the foyer or linked from the chat in Zoom. If you have a joy or a concern you'd like shared with the congregation later during our joys and concerns and our embracing meditation, you can add it if you're here physically in our Book of Life behind Kevin's right shoulder at the piano there. Or again, there's a link to our virtual Book of Life online in the chat. With the end of the comprehensive indoor mask mandate in LA County this past week, we started to run up against perceptions of the world around us and that how we interact with it has changed, and also just how far back to the old normal we're willing or even able to go. Back in the summer of 2020, in the heart of the lockdown, I was confronted very directly by how social distancing and sheltering at home were changing the world in very concrete ways when I was stung on the foot by one of the many stingrays that had taken advantage of beach closures to repopulate the shallows off Venice Beach. And of course, as a swimmer, I didn't want to think about the increased number of juvenile white sharks that were gathering there to feed on the increased population of stingrays. And as the stingrays and the sharks were moving in, traffic on the freeways and socializing around the proverbial office water cooler were on the decline. And some things that were taken for granted in the workplace just might never come back to where they were, like business trips for meetings that have been proven to work just as well on Zoom. Today's service looks at even more profound implications of the new normal that so many of us are confronting at work and elsewhere. And so I'm pleased to introduce today's guest speaker, who's already opened our service, Gregory Cline, who will lead us in considering his sermon topic, Right Work. Gregory is a seminary student at the Star King School for the Ministry. He is currently serving as intern minister for Troop UU Church in Pasadena and also Santa Clarita's Unitarian Universalist congregation. Greg lives in Laguna Beach with his wife Angela and their dog Maggie. And it is my pleasure now to turn the pulpit once again over to Greg for a story for all ages.
Trying technology here. Okay, there we are. Our time for all ages today is actually a book called I Can Do Anything, Don't Tell Me I Can't. I can be anything I want to be. Zoe stretched her arms and spun around. I'm a bird. I can fly way up high, floating on the wind. What if you fail? Said a little voice. I won't fail. Birds have wings. If my wings get tired, I can fly in a rocket ship to a faraway planet. I'll meet people and have tea, party before I come home. What if you can't get home? Said the little voice. Zoe ignored the voice. I can be an archaeologist and travel around the world and dig up dinosaurs' bones and buried treasures. What if you get homesick? You're too little, said the voice. No, I'm not. I'm bigger than you. Maybe I'll be a scientist and discover things, or I'll be an inventor. I'll build a robot that will talk louder than you so I won't hear you. The voice was quiet for a while. I'll be a veterinarian and help wild animals like tigers and bears and dragons. And I'll give them medicine to make them well, and I'll bandage their hurts. What if they bite you? Said the voice. I'll be so gentle, they won't bite me. They will know I am helping them. Oh, I know. I'll be a fire rescue girl and rescue people. I'll drive a big fire engine with a loud siren that goes woo, woo, and rescue a kitty stuck in a tree. You can't drive a fire engine. That's silly, said the voice. That's not silly. I can be anything I want to be, and don't tell me I can't. I'll be an artist and paint pictures. And a museum will hang them up so people will see them. What if you don't have talent? Said the voice. Everybody has talent for something, and so do I. Besides, I'm smart. I can do anything if I try hard enough, and you won't stop me. I can even be an ornithologist who studies birds, and an oceanographer who explores the ocean. Or I can be a musician and give concerts all around the world. I can even be president if I want to be. You're just a voice, and I don't have to listen to you. But I'm always with you, you know, said the voice, no matter what you do. You better be quiet, or I'll be an alligator and eat you up, said Zoe. The voice didn't have an answer to that. It was silent again. I can be an astronomer and study the stars with a big telescope and discover new planets. I'll be a famous chef and bake fancy cakes as tall as I am, and I'll write a book about my recipes. You can't write, the voice came back. But I'm going to learn to write. In school, maybe I'll be a teacher and teach other kids how to write, or I'll be a librarian and have a zillion books to share with everyone. You don't know what you want to be, do you? said the voice. "Go away, voice. I won't listen to you. I'm not grown up yet. I could be anything. But first, I have to learn to read. And read. And read. And I'll read books about all the things I can be. Don't tell me I can't."
Thank you, Greg. As we consider the topic of work today, it's important to realize that not all work creates a product or a paycheck. In evaluating whether an organization counts as a church or not, the Internal Revenue Service has a phrase they use to describe that which churches offer without recompense by way of an admission fee or a defined dues amount. It's a very prosaic, unpoetic, maybe less than spiritual phrase, but it gets the job done. The IRS calls that intangible religious benefit. Intangible religious benefit. Emerson provides that in abundance, not just in these open and inclusive Sunday services, but also in pastoral and community outreach and other programs, religious education and otherwise, that the church offers. And that doesn't come free, even though we don't charge admission. And so the church depends on the generosity of the community, the generosity of the congregation, the free will donations and pledge amounts that you provide to support this work, to provide that intangible religious benefit. And so we invite you to make offering to support the work of Emerson. As you are comfortable and able to do so, you can donate, and the ushers who are going to collect here in the sanctuary, you can donate online using the Vanco mobile app or the donate.emersonuuc.org link to the website, or the old-fashioned way by sending a check to the church address. Your contributions are now gratefully received.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
For many years, decades maybe, I used to carry a slip of green paper in my wallet. It was a small cutting from the green sheet of the old Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, one of the last of the great afternoon daily papers. The green sheet was the section printed on green paper, oddly enough, that contained the comics, the puzzles, and the gossip columns. Now, the little slip of paper that I cut out of the green sheet and carried stuck in my wallet all those years said 3 words: Covert Hollywood Trip. Now, I was part of a headline that I think had to do with Frank Sinatra going to meet with executives in Hollywood on the sly, hence Covert Hollywood Trip. And, of course, that jumped out at me because my last name's Covert. But not just because of that, but because I was obsessed with Hollywood, and I saw myself working there one day. So into my wallet went those three magic words, the organizing principle of my life to be covert Hollywood trip. Now, I was going to be an engineer when I finished high school, went off to college and enrolled as a metallurgical and mineral engineering major at the University of Wisconsin, but that didn't last. Pretty shortly, I gave up on that practical dream occupation and decided to go into the theater, started to study acting. Now, one of the smartest decisions I made in my life was decide not to pursue acting as a profession. I realized that I just didn't have confidence I could walk into a room full of guys who looked and sounded like me and that I would be the one who would walk out with the job. But I continued to study, and it's proven to be applicable in my work subsequently as a theater director and as a teacher, and even right now I'm using some of those acting principles, delivering these remarks in a spirit and practice of improvisation. But to cut forward, years later, after struggling through working in the low-budget theater, I was lucky enough to land an apprenticeship in Hollywood as an assistant director trainee. And so I found myself packing up my truck and moving to Beverly like Jed Clampett. I literally did that. And next thing you know, I am literally face-to-face and on a first-name basis with Steven Spielberg. Here, let me pick up that name. I'm sorry. Giants like Angela Lansbury and James Garner and David Hasselhoff. The late Bill Paxton, the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, the late Little Richard. Yep, true story. So I was living that dream. I was living the covert Hollywood trip. I had more money than when I was struggling as a community theater director and an adjunct instructor of acting. I could travel, seeing places I dreamed of going to for the first time in my life. But the dream was also a nightmare. The reality of the job, the reality of the work was nothing like the dream. It's a factory, Hollywood is. It churns out dreams by the gross, but it's a factory. A director I worked with on a TV series once said, a wonderful guy, I loved him to death, and he works all the time. He said, look, I have no illusions. My job is, I'm a footage delivery specialist. Director. He was a footage delivery specialist for the Hollywood studio. I got no sleep. It was a competitive, stressful environment driven by budget and schedules and deadlines. I found myself more than once literally crying, weeping in frustration and depression behind the walls of a set. And then one day, a producer who I really liked, who was a Buddhist as it happens, sat me down and said something that will stay with me the rest of my life, I'm sure. He said, Todd, you know, I got to tell you, you're getting a reputation for being hard on the help. So my Hollywood trip had turned me into somebody that I didn't really want to be. It was the dream job, but I wasn't really living the dream. So fortunately, my deep introversion came to my rescue, and I had a hard time networking and finding work when the people that liked to hire me weren't necessarily hiring, and I said, I got to get out of this. And Craigslist came to my rescue. I answered an ad for an event coordinator position at the C.G. Jung Institute of Los Angeles. So I went from $2,000 a week to $2,000 a month, literally. But I've never regretted that. I went to a place where the work product was to help people heal, to grow, and to align themselves with their authentic self, with their authentic dreams. My duties were keep the place running, improve employee morale. And so I became much more the person that I wanted to be. And one of the speakers in our public program series explained something once that I had often struggled with as somebody who was always very interested in Carl Jung's work, which is the concept of synchronicity, right? Meaningful coincidence. This fellow, who was a physicist, as it happens, not a psychotherapist, said he understood the concept of synchronicity, of meaningful coincidence, as being what comes about when your personal self moves closer and closer to alignment with its authentic higher self and indeed the universal self. That as you come into alignment with purpose, you start to see things clarify, and they present themselves as meaningful. Things that you wouldn't have noticed if you were bound up in the struggle and fighting against the current of yourself. So as some of you know, I recently changed jobs. After 12 years of the company that actually was pretty good about maintaining my life-work balance, I found myself really questioning the company's values and its future. And so, synchronistically, an opportunity dropped in front of me. A friend was looking for somebody to do what I already did, and he didn't know I was looking to change. And a mutual friend said, hey, I think you might fit what he's struggling to fill, and boom, job change. Now, it wasn't an easy transition, and the company I work for now doesn't necessarily produce, wonderful, world-enhancing things, but my employer treats people well. He models business and personal ethics for his senior management and for his staff, and I appreciate that. And I feel I'm in a place that I was called to be. So, not all signs that you're going to find in life are as glaring as the one that popped up in front of me last fall. But if you find yourself overly focused on a goal, any goal, I hope you can take off the blinders, at least for a moment, and look around. And you may be surprised at the many, many synchronicities and opportunities that life has surrounding you in a broader world. I'd like us to center ourselves now with a sung meditation. Kevin's going to lead. It may be a bit unfamiliar, so Kevin's going to guide us through it.
I'll play it once through and then sing it, and then you sing it once through, and we'll just do it a few times, and you can just join in when you feel like you know it. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough for me.
Let us move forward in this spirit of contemplation, peace, rest, and meditation. At this time, we share the joys and concerns of our members and friends that they wish lifted up and held by the community in our embracing meditation. From our Book of Life here in the sanctuary, Eric Schmidt writes, "Try cooking up some collard greens from our church garden." Thank you, Eric, as always, for the loving stewardship of our garden. Pat Cosgrove writes, "My sister Lisa is still at City of Hope Hospital being treated for leukemia. Hopefully she will be released soon to be near the hospital, and I will join her at a hotel to continue her treatment." Blessings to her, Pat. And in a similar spirit, I hope that the congregation will join me in lifting up my sister, who texted me this morning that she's on the way to the hospital at Stanford University. She's had complications of her ongoing cancer treatment. In the virtual Book of Life, Susan shares, "We lost Bert's best friend since age 19 last week. His widow is struggling to go on. Tomorrow would have been Bert's 92nd birthday. Our thoughts with you and her, Susan." And so at this time, if you wish to lift up a name or an occasion by speaking it here in the sanctuary or typing it into the chat on Zoom, I'm going to sound the singing bowl and give you the opportunity to speak those names or occasions, type those words, that we may all lift them up together. Unsurprisingly, there are a number of references to Ukraine in the chat on Zoom, and I'm sure our thoughts here are with the people in that nation as well. In a moment, I'll sound the singing bowl again, and at that time, I ask you to lift up what has been gathered here and on Zoom into the embrace of this beloved community, including all that which has been left as too tender to be spoken. Thank you. And now the Emerson Choir, under the direction of Eloise Porter, are going to share with us A Time for All Things. Oh, I thought we got her out. Mini crisis. How did you do that? Goodness.
Sounds like what my daughter would do.
You will find some synchronicity in the following sermon. It's something we didn't even discuss in advance. You might have heard someone near and dear to you say, if you're not happy doing what you do, quit, do what you love. Part of Buddha's eightfold path to enlightenment is the practice of right livelihood or right work. You have to find a way of earning your living without transgressing your ideals. In the simplest terms, when it was first written, the Buddha stated that not engaging in a profession that deals with weapons, use of human beings, distributing meat, intoxicants, or poisons. According to the book, The Heart of the Buddha's Teaching, the way that you support yourself can be an expression of your deepest self, or it can be a source of suffering for you and others. Our vocation can nourish us, our understanding of compassion, or erode it. We should be awake to the consequences far and near of the way we earn a living. So, should we embrace this path, we need to figure out what we love, what our ideals are, what that means for a job, figure out how to get that job. No pressure, right? But I do speak from experience and why I'm standing before you today, that if you do embrace this idea of balancing your needs with your ideals and opening yourself up to the possibilities, you might be surprised. In December 2021 alone, 4.3 million Americans walked off their jobs. This is a record that kept getting beat month after month throughout the entire pandemic. And the economists say this trend is only now just starting to slow down. So, who's been quitting? Primarily, it's been people in the food service and hospitality industries. So, hotel workers, restaurant workers, people with lower paying but high labor jobs. And they're leaving for a variety of reasons. Some are quitting from self-preservation to protect themselves from COVID. Still, there are working mothers with no access to childcare. For these people and many others, COVID has given them the opportunity to pause and examine their lives. Time to reevaluate the balance that they want between the security that employment provides with their safety, their ideals, their careers. Many are looking to find a way to do what they love while being able to safely work and support their families. President Biden, in his State of the Union address this week, actually urged the country to get back to work. He asked Americans to fill our downtowns and go back to work supporting our economy in this new normal. However, the obvious and long-term impacts of COVID can be seen both in our physical and our mental health. And it makes this request a bit challenging. We're still trying to decide what to do right now and not just keep doing what was comfortable. According to several polls, people have stated the reason for leaving their jobs or wanting to leave their jobs is because they want to live their values and ideals very Buddhist and very you. Some have been fortunate enough to have been given time, courtesy of the pandemic, to reflect to themselves and their partners, is this really what I want to do? They've taken time to really think about what is important to them. Not just money, but finding work that reflects their values and their beliefs. How can they balance their needs of their families, the income, the safety? And for those that have lost jobs, do they really want to go back to those jobs with personal protection or not? Or can they even take a little more time and think about what they want to do, what alternatives may not have existed before? There can be so many good reasons to leave a job. But how do you know if it's the right time? And more importantly, how do you know if what you're getting into is what you really want to do? Similar to Todd. For me, I had to be open to the subtle nudges of the universe. One of the better-known Unitarian Universalist principles, the seventh principle, holds that the understanding of the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. This is an idea that's central to my personal belief system, and something that I had to really embrace when I first started thinking that it might be time to move on from my past career to the career I'm pursuing now. Before entering seminary, I was with the same company for 21 years. I worked with them in multiple states, multiple countries. I was comfortable with my work. I followed my own personal values and a value of system of honest work, balancing relationships with colleagues and clients. It was only when I felt the company began to change, began to more focus on sales and numbers than on interpersonal relationships and longevity, that I felt our paths started to diverge. And because of that, my work began to falter. I felt that it was not me that was changing, it was the company. They no longer operated on the same value systems that I did. I was out of balance with my company. This was a painful realization, but one that led me to my path to ministry. I decided it was time to set forth for a new beginning, but I needed to make sure I knew what the shape of that new beginning was going to look like. I can be a little dense sometimes, I'll admit it, but this felt like a really big nudge from the universe to start with. So I'd been taking classes at Star King. I had not yet made the leap of faith to go full-time, but I did decide that this is what I love, so why not take the leap? What was holding me back, again, other than loss of income, loss of my career, complete unknown of the ability if I can even be a minister? Again, no pressure, right? I tried to sit still. I left it to the universe to give me direction. And I was provided some really clear signs. First sign, I was taking a lunch break while I was in person in classes at Star King. I was sitting alone. I was thinking about my mother, a departed ancestor, because we were just taking a class about that. I was thinking, what am I meant to do? Am I meant to make this change? Was I supposed to go into the ministry? And just then, a ladybug landed on my napkin right next to me. She started walking around, sometimes still, sometimes seeming to look at me, watching me as I poured my heart out to that poor ladybug. When I finally exhausted this whole stream of consciousness, the ladybug flew away. Now, it might seem really, really small, but my mother loved ladybugs. She was always delighted when one would come into the house. She thought it was good luck. She thought they were wonderful. So, first sign. My second sign, a little bit more overt. I've been taking courses for a while. I've been working full-time. Maybe it changed me, or maybe it changed just other person's perceptions of me. But one colleague came to me just after surviving the Las Vegas concert shooting. She came to me in work and said, "Can I talk to you?" Well, of course. We spent the next few hours talking and listening with compassion. She told me later that she felt safe with me and thanked me for being there. The same thing happened to me several different times with other coworkers seeking me out as well. Which leads me to my third sign. One requirement of ministry is doing what's called a clinical pastoral education unit, CPE. Most of the time it's done as a chaplain, usually in a hospital setting. So after realizing that I was already doing this with my work, why shouldn't I do that? Why shouldn't I do my CPE? I decided that being a chaplain might be part of my spiritual direction, and I started applying to lots of institutions in lots of states, including Hawaii. That was one I really wanted, didn't get it, just to say. But my mind was whirling with the challenges. Again, the stipend is minimal. The work is more than full-time, but it's only for the summer. But it's full-time. I would have to leave my work of 20 years to pursue this. Would I be able to do this? Would I have to move? Would my wife be able to move with me? Could we afford to do it on the stipend that I was going to be getting? And at the time, the hospitals were still overflowing with COVID patients. Did I even want to do this at this point in time? I got offered a CPE position. Not only offered, but I got offered a position 30 minutes from my house. I wouldn't have to move. I wouldn't have to change anything. I could stay with my wife for the summer. Next hurdle. It's the best opportunity I'd be given, but I'd have to leave my job. Maybe this is what I was meant to do. Maybe this is what I loved. I decided to leap. I called my manager to tell her I was quitting. Now remember, nobody at work knew I was even in seminary because the work I was doing didn't lend itself to a spiritual direction. You know what my manager told me? She said, "It's about time. I'm so happy for you. This is what you're meant to do." Do you expect that? Over the next several months, lots of my colleagues started leaving too. I wasn't the only one feeling this. One of my really good close colleagues even left his lease, moved out of the country back to Croatia to be with his family because that's where he felt he needed to be in his life at that time. Okay, universe, I get it. Thank you for those not so subtle hints. Yes, I did want to make the change in my career. I felt my values in the company were diverging. Yes, I opened myself up to the search. And yes, by the way, it was my lovely wife that said, "Not so subtle, do what you want to do." And I feel I'm doing it with you right now. And best of all, not only did she encourage me to do what I wanted to do, she had just changed her career. And she said, "Don't worry about it. I'll be the breadwinner. You go back to seminary." Will this be the case for everyone? Probably not. But I did finally listen to those whispers of the universe to make this change. Maybe hearing this today will be a subtle change you all need. How do you balance work, safety, what brings you joy, and ensure you're living your own values? Be open to the whispers and the nudges of the universe. You never know what paying attention might bring. Amen, and blessed be.
So our last hymn is hymn number 1017, Building a New Way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without this, the world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
To illuminate our paths forward and be a beacon of light for one another. And may we all find our balance in love, life, safety, and occupation. Go now in peace, love, and light. Did we do an actual extinguishing? Thank you. I know. Might need a new candle soon.
I was not sure it was gonna.
How you doing? What's that?
You have some assignments and I have an assignment to
Yes.
look at all these arrangements of morning has broken.
I love it. Oh.